that's Arnold Schwarzenegger at a disco, but he's obviously not shaking his booty. He's trying to shoot off someone else's. It's a scene from a new action picture called The Terminator, and it's just one of 4 new pictures that we're going to be looking at this week on Sneak Previews. I'm Neil Gabler.
And I'm Jeffrey Lyons. Great jokes, Neil. And in addition to The Terminator, in which Arnold Schwarzenegger actually gets to grunt about 10 whole words, we'll review Oh God, You Devil, with George Burns once again playing God, of course, but also playing the devil this time. And we'll review BIZET'S Carmen, the latest version of the classic opera starring Placido Domingo. And also The Killing Fields, the sure Oscar nominee about the fall of Cambodia. And then we'll look at new releases on cable and pay TV channels and what's new in the video stores on cassette. Neil's in the leadoff spot with jokes too, no doubt, with Nathan Birnbaum, George Burns to you in Oh God, You Devil. Right, Neil?
That's correct. Burns is the star of Oh God, You Devil, another sequel to Oh God. Burns plays God again, as Jeffrey said, but there's a new gimmick this time. The gimmick is that he also plays the devil. And in this scene at a wedding reception, the devil woos an unsuspecting singer-composer who, in a moment of weakness, has called on the devil to make him a star.
I get involved in all phases of my clients' lives. That's why I'm the best.
Well, who do you represent if you're so terrific?
All the big names. They all come to me, sooner or later.
Tophet. See, I read the trades, and
I keep my name out of the papers. I'm more effective that way. What do you say, it's a deal?
A deal? I don't even know you. You can't expect me to drop my agent just like that.
I can make things happen. Amazing things. See that waiter?
Yeah?
Watch this.
How did you know that? Harry?
Well, that's about the level of comedy in this movie. It's not too high.
Like yours, right?
No, Jeffrey. You know that's not true. It turns out that the singer gives in, signs a contract with the devil, though he doesn't know it's the devil. You got a little devil in you today, I'll tell you. And suddenly he becomes a rock star, superstar. Only there's a hitch. In order to become a star, he's got to give up his own identity. And he's so miserable not being himself that he appeals to God, as I said, also played by George Burns, to help him out. And in this scene, God wagers the singer's soul in a card game with the devil.
We haven't played for quite a while. 10 of spades is bent. Oh, so it is. Can't fool you. Those cigars are gonna kill you. I love smoke. What about you? Look at the way you dress. It's embarrassing. What are we playing for? I want the kid back. Shelton. You mean Billy Wayne? I mean Bobby Shelton. I don't know. What's it worth to you? Plenty. What do you want from? The Pope. Crazy. Just mad. Bring back the Black Death. I can't look at him, can you? Smallpox? Forget it. Okay. I'm a sport. You can have him back if you win. And if you win, he dies.
Well, there's a new TV series with Michael Landon about an angel who's trying to earn his wings, and so he helps out people having crises. And the reason I bring this up is because Oh God, You Devil would make a perfectly good episode on that TV show. But there's not nearly enough here to make a perfectly good movie. It's not funny enough, it's not poignant enough, though it sure tries hard, and most of all, it's not different enough. It's a story that's been told so many times now, this idea of selling your soul to the devil, that its familiarity makes it tiresome. I'm not sure we really needed a sequel to Oh God, much less 2 sequels, and we certainly don't need this tepid little comedy.
Well, Neil, I reluctantly agree with you, as I always do. Nobody in the
Not
world,
always.
Nobody in the world loves George Burns or his humor more than I do. And watching even that little segment there, I laugh. But this movie should be called Oh God, Enough Already. I think Burns would be terrific, and I'd love to see an hour or two, a concert film of him standing up singing songs, telling vaudeville jokes. But
Which
this
is what he does best,
tiresome. Exactly, he does it best, better than anybody, I think. And there are moments in this movie when you feel that you want to get in there and rewrite some of the lines and give them more punch and more zing and more zip.
Exactly. The movie's supposed to be, I guess, a showcase for George Burns, but he's becoming a caricature of himself. He's this cute, cuddly little old man like E.T. or like one of the gremlins. I'm expecting to go out and buy a George Burns doll for my daughter any day now.
Well, I'd like to do that for my son, but then put him in a movie where just he stands up and tells jokes rather than have him be this character again. The premise,
It's
as
almost
you said,
condescending to George Burns to see him in this kind of light.
Oh, God, enough already. Well, our next movie is BIZET'S Carmen, not to be confused with Oh, God, You Devil, or with any of the recent versions of the classic opera. Julia McGinnis-Johnson stars as a fiery Spanish gypsy, and this version, unlike any other, was filmed on location in Spain, and more important, I think, with the original complete Bizet orchestrations. In this scene, Carmen, who works in a Seville cigarette factory, is taking a midday break from work, and gypsy temptress that she is, she dances and sings the famous habanera about how fickle love is.
L'amour est enfant de bonne, il n'a jamais, jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime, si je te proviens à toi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, si je t'aime,
That's beautiful. Just your average lunch break pastime, right? Carmen, of course, depicts the seduction and the ruination of Don Jose, a headstrong corporal in the town guards, played by the great Placido Domingo. Now, when Carmen is arrested for brawling and Don Jose ordered to cart her off to jail, the cunning gypsy begins to weave her tantalizing web around the now smitten Don Jose to entice him to free her. But by this time, he's already bewitched.
Comme un livre, si je savais, si je me livre, ta promesse, tu la tiendras, ainsi Carmen, Carmen, tu m'aimeras.
Now, going into BIZET'S Carmen, I admit I was slightly prejudiced because as a boy, before my voice changed, I sang in the chorus of Carmen at the Metropolitan Opera in New York, and I happen to have lived in the ancient town in Spain by coincidence where this gorgeous version was filmed. But even if you cringe at the thought of enduring an opera, as I do usually, and as I know Neil does, I think you'll quickly be immersed in the allure of this deeply involving story about loving passionately, as you saw, but foolishly. There's no fat lady wearing horns singing at the end, and none of that heavy-handedness of too many operas. The acting is the perfect mixture of posturing and power, and Miss Johnson's Carmen, as you saw there briefly, is sexy and even bawdy. And Domingo, well, he's the richest voiced Don Jose in years. This Carmen is one of the most beautiful films of the year, and oh, did I adore it.
Well, I have to admit, I am a Philistine when it comes to opera. My idea of opera is the Marx Brothers' idea of opera, and I am not qualified to talk about the music in this movie. I will admit that as well.
Beautiful, though.
But I think this is less a full-fledged movie than it is a filmed opera, and it reinforced all of my prejudices about
Precisely
opera.
the reason I didn't like it. I did like it. The camera did not get in the way here. I didn't think it was a filmed opera. I think this is the way Bizet intended it. I think he would have been
Well, he intended it to
astonished
be on
see
stage.
it. Yes,
that's
but,
what he really
but
intended.
you never get the feeling that it's on stage or stagey or operatic. Bizet would be thrilled by this. I think even if you hate opera, if you never see another movie again about opera, this is the film.
See, and I disagree with you, because I think La Traviata, which we reviewed last year, was an opera movie for lovers of all kinds, not just for opera lovers. I think this movie never finds emotions quite as grand as the music, and so this is an opera movie for opera lovers only.
By comparison, I think that was posturing. I am no Tony Randall.
Boy,
I don't live and die for opera. I never want to see another movie about opera because I don't think it can live up to the standards. And Neil, in the time we've been doing this show, I have never disagreed with you more strongly than on this one.
Well, I disagree very strongly with you, and I found the film boring. I have to admit that.
You hate
Well, and I'm
opera.
going to move to something that I think we do agree on. I know that. And I've got a feeling that our next movie is going to be one of the main contenders for this year's Oscar, along with Places in the Heart. It's called The Killing Field, and it's based on the actual experiences of Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times reporter Sidney Schamberg. Now, Schamberg covered the communist takeover of Cambodia in 1975 with the assistance of a friend and a native Cambodian named Dis Pran. And in this scene, the remaining Americans are being evacuated from Cambodia, and Schamberg has arranged for Pran to evacuate himself and his family.
You're gonna miss it. Well, why don't you check around the other side?
If he comes here, I'm looking for him in the back. Beth! Have you seen Bron?
No, have you looked at the hotel?
I damn away to the post office! The post office!
Rocco! Tell me!
Watch that, and all of those images of the fall of Phnom Penh, the capital of Cambodia, come flooding back, if you remember, in
horrors.
1975.
Oh, God.
Extraordinarily well done. Well, Pran decides to stay in Cambodia with Schamberg, but they're picked up by the communist Khmer Rouge, and the only thing that saves Schamberg from a communist death squad is Pran's pleading with their captors. It's a really harrowing scene. And after that, they take refuge in the French embassy, and Schamberg tries to falsify a passport for Pran so he can stay there. But when the communists move in and check the passport, it fails the test. And in this scene, Schamberg has to watch his friend leave the compound.
Give me these packing fellas.
Goodbye.
Again.
For Christ's sake, Sidney, why didn't you get him out when you had the chance? You had no right to keep him here.
Morgan.
You had a funny sense of priorities.
I'm reporter too, Morgan. I know his heart. I love him like my brother. And I do anything for him. Anything. Goodbye. Tell my wife I love her and look after all my children. She speak any English, Sidney. Please. I don't want anyone to be bad to my wife.
I don't know about you, but even that short burst, I find that really moving.
Yeah.
Well, The Killing Fields is an amazingly beautiful, and I found the images of this picture, one image after another, images of random cruelty and violence, haunting and unforgettable. It's just really stunning visually, and it's one of the most brilliantly directed movies of the year. In fact, the director, Roland Jaffe, used to make documentaries, and he's directed The Killing Fields very much like a documentary. Nothing in this movie is phony. Nothing's over-dramatized. But that may also be the reason why the movie never really blows us away, either. It lacks a certain intensity, a kind of emotional shock that you'd expect it to have, given the power of the story. I'd say The Killing Fields is intelligent, and it's intermittently powerful without being really devastating. But on intelligence and on beauty alone, it's one of the 2 or 3 best pictures of the year.
Oh, you're so right. Not since Missing have I felt as strongly about a picture, and this type of picture, as I have about The Killing Fields. This movie takes you to perdition and back. It shows the world that the Khmer Rouge brutally created in Cambodia and thrust you right into
And
it.
we ought to say that what the Khmer Rouge did when they took over Cambodia is they killed 3 to 4 million
right.
of the 7 million population of Cambodia.
And it's a little-known Holocaust. I hope this movie
That's
brings
right.
that Holocaust to the attention of the world. Dr. Hang there, the real-life person who plays Dith Prang, is himself an escapee from a Khmer Rouge prison camp, and his life parallels Dith Prang's.
But it does more than just bring the situation to the attention of the world. I mean, what it does, it's kind of visual poetry. It enforces that on you as you watch it. It makes you feel
and
the
it
horror.
shows you the cheapness of life. People are killed for no reason instantly. They're sitting at tables and a bomb goes off and destroys everything in
Absolutely.
sight. That's what happened then, and that's the horrifying
How
feeling
people,
of here.
how people are impersonalized
Oh.
by politics. The only thing this movie doesn't have, as I said before, is it doesn't have the old-fashioned Hollywood virtues of romance and emotion.
Thank goodness. It took chances. There are
Well-
long sequences where there are no subtitles and everybody speaks in Cambodian. It lets you live in that horrifying world.
I love this film. It just misses a certain emotionalism, but it is one of the best films of the
Certainly
year.
is a sure Oscar nominee when it's released nationwide, we should say, in February.
Yes.
Well, our next movie is completely different. It's The Terminator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a musical, right? Well, he plays a killer robot from the future who's come back in time in a time machine to kill a woman whose unborn son will someday lead human beings, still with me, in revolt over the machines of the future, which we're told will take over the world. It is a
Please
musical,
repeat that
right?
for me.
Well, in this scene, the woman has fled to a police station, and Arnold the robot comes to track her down.
I'm a friend of Sarah Connor. I was told that she's here. Could I see her, please?
No, can't see her. She's making a statement.
Where is she?
Look, it may take a while. You want to wait? There's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
Boy, that Arnold's really in the tradition of Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, real song and dance man, right? That's the robot made in Austria. Well, soon the Terminator becomes a long chase with the nearly invincible robot pursuing the terrified woman. She's helped by a human warrior from the future who's also come back in time. Her only chance to terminate the Terminator, get it, and survive. Here's the predictable but still exciting climax as Arnold the robot has zeroed in on his prey, revved up his gears for the kill.
Drive faster!
Boy, those wind-up robots go a long way on one wind, don't they? Well, now, as Neil knows, I usually cringe at overly violent movies, but once in a while, once in a very great while, I too can put my brain on hold, as Neil does frequently, and sort of sit back and enjoy. Maybe the original premise for this nonsense is what did it. Maybe I laughed every time Arnold grunted a word or two. Maybe it's just that the violence is so excessive, I threw in the towel and gave in. But whatever the reason, when I walked out of the Terminator, at the end, mind you, I was thoroughly entertained. I sure don't want a sequel, but the Terminator did give my brain a rest for 2 hours. All right, make a comment.
Now, wait a minute.
Straight
You've
line.
just given me the
All
greatest
right,
straight
all
line
right,
in the world
I
to
asked
show
for
you
it.
what a nice co-host I am. I'm not even going to take you up on it.
You're all heart, Neil.
But I'm surprised that you like this movie. I mean, we've had arguments on this show week after week about this kind of film, and I've always said that movies, like literature, you can have a Hollywood Wives and a War and Peace, and the same thing is true on the screen. And all I demand of a movie like this is a lot of action, well done, and a rooting interest, somebody to care about. This movie provides both.
Certainly does.
Got an awful lot of action, it's got people you care about, and it's got a rather ingenious plot. There's even a degree of suspense in this movie.
Nice performances by all, including Linda Hamilton and Michael Beheen there in the car. Very well done, a lot of action, and just don't go into this picture expecting anything else. I mean, who plans an evening around an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, right?
I thought you did,
You know
Jeffrey.
what to expect, and this picture delivers. It's a sudden hit at the box office.
It's a good B movie, not quite in the class of 84, but, you know, still all right.
You've shown your true colors, Neil, as usual. Well, this month brings movies on cassette geared mostly to younger or less discerning viewers. Even though it was a hit this past summer in theaters, Purple Rain is already out on cassette. It stars Prince as a rock singer, and even though you've got to be a fan of his to like the movie, Purple Rain has a few satisfying musical numbers. And fresh from its brief stay in some unlucky movie theaters, Bolero is now in your video store. But this dopey Bo Derek movie, maybe that's redundant, deserves to be left on the shelf. And there's a never-ending story, a boring, pretentious bit of preteen existentialism about a young boy who loses himself in a fairy tale book. But this never-ending movie will put people of all ages quickly to sleep. But there is at least The Empire Strikes Back, the second and least satisfying of the Star Wars trilogy. But the Star Wars saga wouldn't be complete without at least one viewing, would it?
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Jeffrey, I suspect you were less than enthusiastic about Purple Rain because you thought it was starring Prince and you thought it was going to be about Charles and Diana, right?
Neil, it's your level of music. You take notes during American Bandstand.
We're obviously well into the month of November, but there are still plenty of opportunities to catch up on the major movies on pay TV this month. I can't recommend The Right Stuff about America's early space program. It's overlong, juvenile, simplistic, and dehumanizing. It's an epic without grandeur.
Right, gracious and magnanimous about this and say, well, the Russian guys just beat the pants off us, that's all. And there's no sense in kidding ourselves about that, but now that the space age has begun, I think there's going to be plenty of work for everybody.
Probably the least of the offerings is Francis Ford Coppola's Rumblefish about misunderstood teenagers. It's got its visually stunning moments, but it's bogged down in artiness and pretension.
You always try so hard to be like your brother.